Hello and welcome into the Hecklers Podcast. I am your host, Gordon Coletto, and joining me once again is my co host, Billy. Billy, it has been quite a while and a lot has changed around the NFL since we were last on here together. How are you feeling?
I mean, as a Panthers fan, I'm feeling pretty good. Bryce has played well. And I would just like to know Bryce has played better than CJ Stroud did. And my take that CJ Stroud is not a franchise quarterback is looking truer by the day. So, all in all, I couldn't be happier.
I will say it is certainly an exciting time in Carolina as the resurgence of Bryce Young, the turnaround, and Canales looks good as a coach. I really wish I could say the same for my Patriots, but that's going to be for another show, actually, our show next week. So be sure to tune in for that one. All right, on to the business of today. We're going to be previewing the matches for this weekend. And of course, that means that we're going to kick things off with the Chargers and Texans, who are going to play on Saturday afternoon. Billy, how do you see this one going?
I think this is going to be a pretty boring playoff game from the standpoint that neither offense is particularly great. I mean, in terms of total offense, the Chargers are 20th and the Texans are 22nd. The Texans, Stephon Diggs is hurt. Tank Dell got who knows what his career is going to be at this point with his injury. So they're definitely depleted. And the Chargers, while they have Lad McConkey and Quentin Johnston has looked good from time to time, they're not a high-powered offense. I think it's going to be definitely a defensive slugfest, and whoever can get their run game going, I think really has the advantage. Whether if the Chargers get it going, then that's going to free up opportunities for Justin Herbert in the passing game, and I think the same is true for the Texans. I think what goes in the Texans' favor is that they have a better pass rush, and they have a better weapon on offense than Nico Collins, and they're playing at home. But I still think that the Chargers are going to win this game. The one thing that really gives me pause to say that is that everyone's picking the Chargers. And usually, when that happens, especially in a game like this where I think they're fairly equal teams, you know, it seems to go the other way. So that's the only thing that's giving me pause about picking the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the BetMGM line here. Chargers are 3-point favorites in this game. Of course, on the road, that's nearly a touchdown, since we typically assume about 3 points home field advantage. So it is a little surprising to me, given how similar across the board in terms of rankings these two teams are. It's a little bit surprising to see that line so much in favor of the Chargers. I do agree.
Especially, I mean, they're almost identical stat
Mhm.
wise.
I do agree with you though that the low hanging fruit for either of these teams, both of these teams have really good pass defense, but both of them are kind of uh, good to middle of the road when it comes to rushing defense. So I do think whoever's able to get their run game going is probably going to be the victor in this one. Of course, I think I would rather in that scenario have Joe Mixon than J.K.
Mhm.
Dobbins. So it'll be interesting to see. But again, the Texans, they're down to just Nico Collins, who obviously is fantastic. But I do think this will be a closer game, I think a lot of people are just handing it to the Chargers. It may still go to the Chargers, but it's going to be a close game.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the Chargers have the better coach too. So
Yep.
that
Yep.
certainly helps in their favor.
And that might be what it is, right? Tie goes to the team with the better coach. And I think that's probably where we're at. I think the betting line is a little aggressive. What do you think about the over under for this game? 42 and a half.
It it seems a little low to me.
Yeah.
Like I don't think well, I think there's some good both teams have a good defense. I mean, the Chargers were number one in points per game on defense. So I mean, obviously they're very good at stopping teams from scoring, and then the Texans are 14th at 21.9. But I think more points are going to be scored than this. I think it's going to be one of those games. I don't think it's going to be, like 35-32 or anything like that, but I could certainly see it being, 27-24.
Okay. Yeah, 27-24. I was thinking 24-21. Give me the Chargers. So I think we're both a little bit bullish on the over for that one. All right, let's go ahead and move into our second game of the weekend, which is going to be the Steelers and the Ravens. I don't mind kicking us off on this one. Um, Obviously, I like the Ravens, right? Like this, when you look at these two teams in terms of rankings, it's not even close. Ravens number one in total offense, Steelers 23rd. Ravens first in rushing, seventh in passing. I mean, this is a really good offense. I don't think the Steelers are going to be able to slow them down. Of course, the Steelers, they're 25th. You know, we're so used to the Steelers being really good defensively. They're 25th in passing yards allowed. Now they're sixth in rushing yards, right? So between Lamar and Derrick Henry, like they're going to have to find a way to pick up some rushing yards. But I don't think they're going to be able to stop Lamar Jackson passing the ball. And of course, the Ravens also. This is, I think, probably the weirdest thing about this matchup. When we think about these teams, we don't often think about them being awful against the pass, but the Ravens 31st and the Steelers 25th. Like that's pretty crazy. Um, so I think if I'm looking at it through the lens of like betting, I probably like Russell Wilson over his passing yards total because I think that's going to be the only way to really pick up yardage against the Ravens defense. So look at George Pickens, look at Russell Wilson, but I still don't think they're going to be able to keep pace with Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. But I mean, historically, we have seen Lamar Jackson when he gets in these playoff games and they ask him to pass, he falls flat. So like I'm totally open to that as a possibility. Um, what do you think about this one?
I think so. Looking at the spread from Bet MGM, and they have it as the Ravens -10. I think that's too much because
That's aggressive.
this
Yeah,
is a divisional game, and the Steelers and Ravens always play it close. So that kind of gives me some hesitation on that line. Plus, Zay Flowers
yeah.
probably isn't playing. I haven't heard any more about that, but I know he got hurt. Justin
I haven't
Tucker,
seen a betting line for him, and the Mark Andrews one continues to go up. So
yeah, he's probably out.
I suspect he's a no.
And, Justin Tucker hasn't been classic Justin Tucker that we know. I mean, I still think the Ravens are going to win this game, but I could see this game being very, very close. Also, I would pick up, if you're going to bet, Russell Wilson's going to throw a pick in this game.
Mm,
Whether I could honestly see it at the end of the game. I think this game's going to be significantly closer than the Ravens winning by more than 10. I could see it where the Steelers have a possession to go. They're trying to drive down the field. He throws a pick. I'm going to just call my shot. He throws it to Kyle Hamilton.
okay. Does yeah, but the question is, does Kyle Hamilton hold on to it?
Well, I mean, that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you. Like this just has the feel of a game where the Ravens should have control of this, and I think Russell Wilson's just going to kind of be exposed a little bit. Just looking at the props here. George Pickens over 53 and a half. I kind of like that. Mark Andrews over 46 and a half. That feels obtainable.
What
Like
I
there's some
think
good lines.
what I think for the Ravens, I think if Derrick Henry has one of those, 150-yard rushing games, there's no way the Steelers catch up. But if they can contain, in quotes, you can only contain Derrick Henry so much. If you can somewhat contain Derrick Henry, that's, I think, their formula to getting this game close.
Yep. Put the game on Russ, or sorry, put the game on Lamar's arm and see what happens. I'm just looking to see here, checking the weather because I'm curious about why these Saturday, it looks like light snow. It looks like it's going to be a high of 36. I mean, it'll be a relatively cold game. Could be troublesome for Lamar Jackson because I was looking at these quarterback passing yards props, 216 for Lamar, 208 for Russell Wilson, and we're talking about the 31st and 25th ranked passing defense. I feel like those are almost gimmies, but it seems like the betting markets are pretty bullish on whether or not they're going to be able to throw in this weather. All right, let's see. We are on to our next matchup. Why don't you tell us about the Bills and Broncos game?
So I think if you're a Broncos fan, the season's already a win. I mean, anything else that you get is icing on the cake. Obviously, you don't want to see Bo Nix throw three interceptions or have, three turnovers in this game. But I think you can take away from the season. We need to get a few more pieces on offense. The defense looks good, but obviously, like you always want to get a few more pieces. I think you can see the future's bright here. We've got a really good head coach, a quarterback who, worst case, is a solid starter, but obviously has the potential to be more. Having said that, the Bills are going to win this game. It's going to be snowing. I know the Broncos play in Mile High. The weather gets cold there. The Bills know how to play in this game. I think the Bills are going to handle business. I think they're determined this season to show that they can not only advance in the playoffs, but they can get past the Chiefs.
I'm gonna break with you a little bit on this one. Um, I all week long I've been feeling, and this is not because they lost to us and cost us the number one overall pick. This is just a gut feeling, but I feel like this is a game the Bills lose. Um,
Mm.
they are 9-point favorites, so I'm definitely going out on a limb. But I'm looking at it and I'm saying, yes, the Bills, they're 10th ranked offense. Broncos are 19th. Bills are ninth in passing, ninth in rushing. The Broncos are 20th and 16th, right? Like everything should tell you that this is the Bills' game to lose. But then I go down to the defense and I'm sitting here and I'm saying to myself, the Broncos are seventh in yards allowed per game. They are 19th in passing yards, but third in rushing yards. If the weather's ugly and the Bills are going to have to be running the ball, I think the Broncos defense keeps this close, and I think it could end up as a coin flip. So I'm certainly betting against that 9-point spread. I think that's way too much given I guess I don't know. I just feel like they're being bullish on Josh Allen and the Bills. I think the Broncos can keep this thing close and I think they can win it. Um I don't know. What do you think? I know you're obviously going Bills.
I
I don't
think depending, so I looked at the weather. It's supposed to snow up there.
know.
That definitely for that -9 definitely gives me pause to bet that for the Bills. But then again, I've seen the Bills play this game this season. I mean, they stomped the 49ers. I know the 49ers aren't exactly what they were a year ago, but they still have some good players in that 49ers team, and they absolutely stomped them. I just think, I mean, it's Bo Nick's first playoff game.
Yeah.
Josh Allen historically has been very good in the playoffs. I don't know that I see him laying an egg after having this season where, pretty much nothing went wrong for him. But on the flip side, you could argue he's due.
I do feel like given the weather, that over under at 47 and a half, that under
Feels
is really
high.
enticing. I know these are good teams in terms of offense. Like I think they'll put up some points, but I don't think it's getting all the way up to 48 points. I'd be tempted to parlay potentially the Broncos to cover, and then of course the under. I think that's a good line for bettors. I mean, my thing is there's going to be an upset this weekend. And for me, this is the game I'm watching. Which one thing I'll say in prepping for the show, I was pleasantly surprised at outside of the Ravens Steelers matchup how closely matched up a lot of these teams were in the wild card round. Especially coming out of the college football playoffs where the seeding was a mess and it's resulted in a really sloppy bracket. Like this feels really good. There's a lot of really good matchups this weekend. Okay. Next up, we have the Packers visiting the Eagles. This is another interesting one where the betting line has the Eagles as 5-point favorites, and as we dig into the numbers, it feels like a closer game than that to me. Like the Packers fifth in total offense, the Eagles are eighth. The Packers are 12th in passing offense, the Eagles are 29th. The Eagles are second rushing and the Packers are fifth, right? So these teams are not separated by a ton. And then, of course, the Eagles, what really the difference maker is their defense, right? They're first in yards per game allowed. Packers are sixth. They're first in pass defense. The Packers are 13th. They're seventh against the run. Sorry, the Packers are seventh against the run and the Eagles are 10th. So I do think the Eagles defense is the difference maker here. Um, but And also, we were talking about Russell Wilson throwing an interception earlier. I think you take Jordan Love to throw an interception
Oh,
against
you
the
have
Eagles
to.
defense. That seems like a foregone conclusion at this point. But this will be interesting. I think this will be a good game. Um, I'll be curious to see how this one plays out. The Packers are one of those teams that tends to show up for the playoffs. We know Jordan Love can play in the playoffs, so I'm curious to see how this goes, and whether or not the Packers are potentially our other upset to look out for. What do you think?
I'm taking the Eagles in this one, and my reasoning for it is while we've seen the Packers show up in the playoffs, this season they haven't been particularly great against the upper echelon teams in the league. And I mean, part of that is their division was just a gauntlet between the Lions and the Vikings. So that obviously hurts them. But we've seen them lose to this Eagles team already this season. And the Eagles are at home. That's a rowdy bunch in the fans. I think the Eagles take this one. I I'm actually going to take the Eagles. We have the spread at -5. I would actually take that.
Okay. So definitely down on the Packers' chances here. I mean, so obviously our buddy John, listener and subscriber to the show, which everyone should be, he is a big Packers fan. And when we were talking about this game, I said to him, the Packers feel like one of those teams where Jordan Love can throw 5 touchdowns and you'll just shut down an opponent and it's game over, or he'll throw, 3, 4 interceptions and hand the game away. And it doesn't feel like there's much middle ground. So I'll be curious to see what Jordan Love shows up for this
Their
game.
their lack of an elite receiving option, I think, is what's going to cost them.
Yeah, that's that's true. But I mean, they do love to spread the ball around. It'll be. I mean, this. I think this will be a good game to watch, though.
No, yeah, I think this might be. It's definitely up there in the top three best games of the weekend.
I need to check and see if the snow is going to impact this game as storms kind of push through the entire East Coast. So that'll be interesting. Of course, I'm not really too worried about the Packers. They know how to play in the snow too. All right, the Commanders are going to be visiting the Bucks, and who better to talk about your NFC South champions? Is this 2 years in a row? I think it is. Than
I
you,
think it's
Billy.
4.
4 years in a row. My goodness, that's hard to say for the NFC South, which felt like a division that no team could win back to back. But here the Bucks are once again in the playoffs as your NFC South champions. Billy, what do you make of this one?
I think much like what I said for the Broncos, if you're a Commanders fan, you just take the season as a win, no matter the outcome of this game. Um, I think Jaden Daniels has played well this season. I mean, the Bucks have the seventh ranked total offense, or excuse me, the Commanders do. The Bucks are third in offense. The Bucks are better at passing the ball. Uh, the Commanders were third in rushing yards, but Tampa was fourth. I mean, it's just in terms of offense, they're very, very even. I will say the Buccaneers didn't have a great pass defense, um, but the Commanders don't have a great rush defense. I think all of this balances out.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take the Bucks because I don't know. Baker's played so well this season. I know Jaden Daniels has too, but I just don't trust a rookie in the playoffs. Baker's been there. Mike Evans has been there. The Bucks just have guys that are seasoned and ready to go, whereas the Commanders don't.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this game and I'm saying to myself, I think the difference maker for the Buccaneers is going to be that tandem of Rashad White and Bucky Irving against a bad Commanders run defense. I mean, they're 30th in the league. They're allowing 137.5 rushing yards. A two-headed monster of backs in Tampa Bay is going to be challenging them. I think they're eventually going to have to start pulling guys down from the secondary to support and run defense. And at that point,
Baker's going to light them up.
there goes Mike Evans. Yeah. So I do like the Bucks in this one. I like them to cover that 3 point spread. I know it's crazy because it's a 50.5 over under. I kind of like the over in this game. The Buccaneers have been putting up insane points. Um, and of course, the Commanders, they put up a lot of points typically in the first half and then give up a lot in the second. So that's
And then
another
the Bucks don't score a lot in the first and put up a bunch in the second.
Yep. So if you're thinking about potentially like game flow betting, maybe you take the Commanders against the spread for their first half, and then you take the Buccaneers on the spread in the second half, um, and kind of just see. I do think the second half Baker's going to be chasing a little bit, so he'll start racking up some passing. Mike Evans probably have a big day, but I like the Bucks in this one too. All right, let's see. We have made it to the final game of the weekend already. That went quick. This one, of course, has been moved to Monday due to the wildfires in Los Angeles, and it's going to be played on a neutral site. Although I don't know how neutral of a site Arizona is for the Rams. I guess depending on who turns out for the game, if it's Cardinals fans, it might be a little hostile. But of course, I feel like the Rams have owned the Cardinals at home for a long time. So
Are
it
there
might just,
really that many Cardinals fans out there?
well, all three of them might show up. And if all three of them show up and get, seats behind the bench, could be annoying. But yeah, no, I mean, this is a home away from home for the Rams, I feel like. So I do hate that for them. Like it sucks to lose your home field advantage because you earned it and you should get to play with it. Of course, this one, the Vikings coming in as the lower seed are favorites by 2.5 points. Um, I'm not super shocked by that. I think a lot of people look at the Vikings as kind of a team. They obviously could have been the number one seed or, the number five seed. Like it was a coin flip. And of course, they got waxed by the Lions and ended up as a wild card team. So I think they're definitely better than the Rams. As far as total offense is concerned, they're pretty close, 12th and 15th. Uh, passing wise, Vikings are sixth, Rams are 10th. Rushing, Vikings are 19th, Rams are 24th. So offensively, I think these teams are very close. And then defensively, the Vikings 16th in total defense, Rams are 26th. But the Rams are 18th in pass defense, the Vikings are 28th, which that I find that a little surprising given the amount of attention that Brian Flores has been getting. Everyone's saying he's doing a great job, but 28th in pass defense, that doesn't.
I mean, they've got 14 wins, so everyone's trying to air it out on them, try and catch up points wise.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess you let up 7,000 yards to Jared Goff in Week 18, and it'll drive up your total for the year. And then of course, run defense wise, the Vikings are second, and the Rams are 22nd. So I think Kyron Williams is going to struggle probably in this one. I think that's probably safe to say. But I'm not counting out Matthew Stafford against the 28th ranked pass defense. Um, Matthew Stafford, we saw it against the Bills. I mean, he can show up in a big way, but he can also disappear. So as far as the spread is concerned, if you think the Vikings are going to win, it's probably because Matthew Stafford disappeared. So take the spread 2.5 points. They'll crush them if that happens. If you think the Rams are going to win, it means that Stafford put on a clinic. So look to bet his props. Of course, over under in this game is 48. I think that's absolutely obtainable for these two teams. What do you think about this game?
I'm hammering it right now. Rams are winning. I think Sam Darnold's a fraud, and he proved it last week against the depleted Lions defense that he couldn't stand up to the moment. So why would he stand up to the moment in the playoffs? So to me, I'd rather take. You've got. Well, I love Kevin O'Connell as a coach. Sean McVay is a better coach. You've got. I think this is going to be a big Cooper Cup game for Cooper Cup at this point in his career, not Triple Crown winner Cooper Cup. I think Puka's going to have a big day. And I think Kyron Williams, while he might not have the rushing yards, I think he's going to get involved in the passing game and he's going to get a touchdown. I am hammering the Rams this week.
I mean, gosh, that's
I just don't trust Sam
it,
Darnold.
that's bold. Well, I mean, you have firsthand experience with Sam Darnold being a Panthers fan. Uh, two former Panthers quarterbacks made the playoffs this
Okay,
year.
let's skip past that.
Well, I think that we need to explore that a little further. By the way, the Kyron Williams line sitting at about 83 and a half. I feel like all year Kyron Williams line was about 94 yards. So it's
Is
definitely
that total
down.
offense?
That's just rushing yards.
Okay.
Total offense is 97.5, which now that feels, I mean, if you're saying 83 yards on the ground and 97 total. You're only expecting 14 yards through the air. I think that's actually a little. Especially they lost Blake Corum to a season-ending injury, so like Kyron Williams is basically by himself. So I think reasonably he can hit that 14-yard receiving threshold. So that I think the combined is actually a better value than buying just his rushing total.
I would agree with that as well. And I think what's Puka's catch total? What's the line for
Puka's
that?
catch total. Now you're challenging me to navigate the app live during the podcast. Let's see how we go. All right, receptions made. Puka Nakua over 7.5.
I'm taking that.
Mm, gosh, let me see
I had
what the
Puka on my fantasy team. He was getting 8 to 10 catches every week, it felt like.
they've got Kyron Williams at 1.5,
What's Cooper Cup at?
4.5.
Hammering that too.
So you're pretty. I mean, you're going full
I'm in on
air
the
it out
Rams.
offense. Puka Nakua receiving yards 88.5. Cooper Cup 49.5. That feels low.
Taking over on Cooper Cup's receiving
49
yards.
and a half, and you're thinking he's going to get 5 receptions. There ain't no way he's not getting over that.
Exactly.
I'm trying to see Kyron Williams, 10.5 yards on the ground. That feels like low hanging fruit. Yeah, there's some good lines this weekend coming out of a brutal week 18 where like we didn't know who was going to play. We didn't know how long they were going to play. And it felt like the betting markets were killing people over all the props that players had for bonuses. Like,
I definitely lost some money on that.
I mean, this weekend feels a lot better on the prop market. And I think some of these lines, like we talked about, Ravens, Steelers, Bills, Broncos, some of these really big numbers, 10-point spread, 9-point spread, I think there's some money to be made out there. So we'll have to check in with you in next week's podcast and see how you did on the bets this weekend. But of course, that'll do it for our playoff preview show. We're going to be back, like I said, next week. Our hope is to discuss the outcomes of these games, Billy's bets, of course, and so much more. But so be on the lookout. We're also going to be doing our year in review show for teams that missed the playoffs, talking about things that we should feel good about for those teams and things that we should be worried about for those teams. We maybe need a whole episode for the Patriots. I'm afraid there's a lot to
Okay.
talk about there. So definitely be on the lookout for that. Make sure also to subscribe to the show so that you can be notified when that episode comes out and all of our episodes. But other than that, have a great weekend. Enjoy these games. Like we said, there's some good ones out there and hopefully make some money. So for Billy, I am Gordon saying keep heckling.
1, 2,